Welcome back here to X's and Bros on the Michigan Sports Network. Danny Cahaler, Ryan Elke, Anthony Bellino, all joining you. Join us now as he does on a weekly basis. Sometimes it's on Wednesdays, sometimes it's on Thursdays, and it could be on a Tuesday. It doesn't matter when. All that matters is that we get him on the horn. He covered the Detroit Tigers minor league system for a couple of decades. Also a member of the National Football Foundation and Football Writers Association of America. Our good buddy John Wagner. Find him on Twitter at John Wagner Media. Johan, my good friend, how are you? How's life? How are things, partner?
Well, Anthony, first of all, I am a little slice of heaven. Second, thank you. I don't thank you enough for the kind introduction that you give. Today especially, saying it doesn't matter what day of the week I'm on. It's just glad to add. I love being on the show. I appreciate it. I appreciate the kind words. I'll even listen to the people who want to disagree with me, even though we know they're wrong. But hey, and speaking of which,
yes, sir.
I need to fact check one of us from 2 weeks ago. I was so mad after we talked last week. I forgot to bring to the attention of one of the members of this crew, and I'll give you a hint, it wasn't me, who said the classic phrase, walk softly and carry a big stick. And then, who did they attribute that classic line to?
Winston Churchill. That was me.
Yeah, and that's wrong, dude.
What?
Walk softly and carry a big stick? It's Teddy Roosevelt, my friend.
Are you sure about that?
Winston Churchill.
Are you sure about that?
Look it up. Look it up. Just look it up. Teddy Roosevelt, okay? So, I feel like I've accomplished something today.
Speak softly and carry a big stick, and you will go far. Theodore Roosevelt. Oh,
no further questions.
No.
So, hey, just to show.
Let me give Churchill some love here on the program, huh? We speak the King's English round here.
Hey, Winston Churchill, that's not a bad guess. It's just not the correct answer. So, I'm just showing that your listeners that we listen to what we say. We do our best to correct our mistakes, even though mercifully we don't make very many. Lucky for us. But when we're wrong, we'll gladly admit it. We'll correct.
Indeed.
Right?
Yeah, I have no problem with that, going back and finding out that it was Theodore Roosevelt, and this whole time I've been lied to. John, I want to let you know, I don't know what you were doing. We have had some inclement weather the last few days. So we had a game on Sunday that's been postponed, moved to a later date in July against the Giants. And then Monday, that game was postponed, and that we got moved into a doubleheader. So they did a back-to-back doubleheader yesterday, and they played 2 games in 5 hours. John, the pitch clock is the one thing that MLB fans didn't know that they needed in their lives. Start at 1 o'clock and be done by like 6:15. Are you kidding me? This is brilliant. Rob Manfred for Heisman. Everybody was barking at him. They didn't want the ghost runner, the runner at second base, extra innings. That's not baseball. They go crazy over that. Then, they don't want the pitch clock because that's not baseball. But you know what? All the games are moving right along. There's not as much dead time. Sure, there might be a little penalty issued here or there. Here's a ball, here's a strike. You might argue that you're getting tossed out of here. Outside of that, this thing is absolutely dynamite. This is everything that any casual baseball fan would absolutely love.
Well, here's a couple of things to remember. The second game on Tuesday was a 1-0 game. Okay, that's gonna go fast even without a pitch clock. Okay, that kind of game is gonna go fast. But you're right. The first game, there was how many hits? I want to say like 22. There were a bunch of hits. Okay, so clearly a bunch of base runners. And it still got done in under 2.5 hours. So, yeah, I'll give, hard to argue that. Games are moving faster. People seem to be more interested. I will grant you all that. The one thing, Anthony, we talked about this last week, and I asked you to put a note up, and you kindly did, to find out if people were as incensed as I was about the shift rule. And my understanding is,
well, the poll results came back. 74% of people voted with the shift, which I was really surprised about. They actually like the fact that this rule is in place, and only what 26% voted to get rid of the banning of the shift. So I thought that was really interesting.
It's a fine line between interesting and crazy, and I think 70-some% of your listeners jumped that line. I still think that's crazy. We'll talk about it, I guess, down the road. But I do have one other question for you. And this is one I've been saving for a while, and I think today is the day to break it out.
Oh, boy.
Okay?
Yep.
Who is the number one whipping boy for Tiger fans who are upset with his team, and
Javy Baez.
why isn't it doing better? And I'm sorry, what was that name?
Javy Baez.
Indeed it was. Indeed it was. And I'm assuming that you are with that chorus of people who we're saddled, we're doomed, we're stuck with Javy Baez. Are you in that group?
Well, Thursday night, about 7:45, 8:00ish, I was in that mode. And then all of a sudden, AJ Hinch, after a base running blunder, another one.
Yes. In other words, right about the time he was running away from second base thinking there were two outs on a fly ball when there was only one.
Yeah.
And he was literally seconds away from being doubled up off second and minutes away from being taken out of the game. Correct?
Yeah, right about there.
Yeah, right about there. Yeah. I'm here to defend Javy Baez. All right? You go ahead, take your shot. I want to hear them all. Let me just start, though, by saying I'm only going to defend him to a degree. Because he's getting paid, what, $22, $23 million?
6 years, 140, I think, is what he signed for, off the top of my head.
Right, yeah. So it's like this year. Let's just look at this year. He's getting paid $22, $23 million, give or take.
Mm-hmm.
Is he playing to that level? I think we can all agree he is not. The problem isn't, in my mind, is he playing to that level? It's, is he capable of playing to that level? Can that guy ever be the player who is worthy of $20 million? Are you saying yay or nay on that?
Yeah, I think he has shown flashes. I think that's what that we saw a little bit of that in Chicago, and we were hoping that by getting this offer out to him and him signing it, coming to Detroit, you lock up your shortstop position, for a handful of prime years, and you look at him, not hitting 180, basically, and he even said it after he was yanked by AJ Hinch, which we'll get back to that moment in time in a second, but he said, look, if I had 7 home runs right now, am I still in the game? More than likely. But I respect the manager and his decision, and he's the boss, and I'm paraphrasing here. But he was right. If he was performing, we're not looking at that individual moment in time like we are today, whereas he has been so underwhelming that it just kind of just puts the spotlight on it, right?
I hear it. And in fact, Anthony, I want to put a spotlight on something else. The fact that after he got pulled out of the game for a base running blunder, where was he? He was in the clubhouse after the game answering questions from reporters. I did this job for 20 years. I can tell you there are plenty of guys who know all the hiding places available to keep out of the eyes of reporters, including going home. Okay? I'm going to skip sports for just a second. When Rudy Gobert of the Minnesota Timberwolves was accused of punching one of his teammates during a game and got sent to the locker room and not to return. Literally not to return. He was not only not available to reporters after the game, he wasn't in the Target Center after the game. He was gone. They sent him home. Javy Baez could have been treated the same way. Instead, he showed up and answered questions. That's not common. That is to be respected. Now, again, I think I'm going to say this about 20 times. So here's time number 2. Does that mean he's worth $22 million? Okay, that alone, no, no. But it's not a small consequence. It's not insignificant. It's all part and parcel of what you get when you have an elite player. You're expecting him to stand up and answer questions in good times and bad. And so, again, I think that's a mark on the plus side for that guy.
Yeah, I think he showed us a little mettle, right? I think he showed us a little fortitude there. That, you know what, I get it. It's my fault. It's my mistake. I'll stand in here. I'll take the brunt of it. Here's the deal. Here's the reality of the situation, and I respect it. And he had a very, very productive weekend. He had a good day yesterday for the most part. Strikeout number, I think he had 3 Ks in the 2 games. So that's a little high, and he was 1 for 4 in each game. But he drove in a couple of runs, so that's always fun too. Trying to make a little bit of a difference. And the way that I look at it was that a moment in time on Thursday night in Toronto, where even though it's early on in the season, it's set in motion this current 5-game winning streak, which makes the Tigers tied for the second hottest team in baseball. The Atlanta Braves are the hottest team in baseball with 7 consecutive wins. And the Tigers are right there in that conversation, putting some things together. Is that a moment in time you think we look back to at the midway point of the season and say that was it right there? That's what changed the trajectory of this team?
I don't know if we say about the team. It could be. Yes, it could very well be. Because, again, AJ Hinch is also sending a message to the other guys on that roster. I don't care if you're one of my highest paid players. If you screw up, you're out. You're out of the game. So that can be kind of a shot across the bow of an entire team. I would say, though, the greater chance is that is what gets Javy Baez going. Because he's a guy who lives in a moment. Moments matter for him. Remember, any time that the Tigers play the White Sox, what does Javy Baez do? He goes crazy because all those White Sox fans are booing him because he's a former Cub. They're going crazy, and he responds to that. I mean, that's like pulling the string on a Barbie doll. That gets him talking. That gets him going. This could very well be that kind of moment that gets him going as well. And you got to remember that he's a guy who rises up to moments. The bigger the moment, probably the better you're going to see from him. So a team that starts out 2-7, that's the worst possible elixir to get the most out of Javy Baez because you've already buried yourself. It's easy to go on autopilot. It's easy to run away from second base thinking there's 2 outs when there's only 1. Will it be what gets the team going? That's hard to say. Will it be what gets Javy Baez going? I think there's a very real chance that it will.
Boy, John Wagner. I mean, it's definitely some food for thought, and it seems to have a little bit of uptick with Javy, and that's a definite plus because there isn't enough in this lineup that you can afford to have another year like with what Javy did last year, right? I mean, if for $20+ million, he's got to be the guy that you thought that you signed up for. If this team's going to be at all competitive, which they're proving through the last 5. That yes, they're competitive. They can win a baseball game. That's always a plus. They've gotten a little bit of power. Both Green and Carpenter home runs helped the Tigers sweep the doubleheader against the Guardians. And I wanted to go to a Mr. Carpenter here because he's somebody that there wasn't a lot of hype around. Like he didn't come in here with the Spencer Torkelson 1-1, if you will. In fact, I think he was a 19th round selection, maybe.
Yeah, he's a late round guy.
Yeah,
whatever the number is, he's not one of those bonus baby marquee draft picks by any stretch.
And he is really he's kind of flexed some muscle here. I mean, so far he's got 10 hits on the season. He's got 4 doubles, 3 home runs, 5 RBI. in his 42 at bats, he struck out 12 times. Like it's really, I mean, this is kind of what this team needed though, right? Okay, if Torque is going to be Torque, and who knows what that's going to look like, and Riley Green's going to be pretty good. And if Javy Baez can play at least a little bit better than what he played last year, and maybe you get one out of every 3 outings is a good one for Miggy, somebody's going to have to step up and do something. It kind of feels like Kerry Carpenter's, etched his place out right now in this lineup and on this team.
That could be. I mean,
you don't get excited about anything. I can't. John's going to read the back of his card. That guy's going to hit 230 his whole life. I'm trying to get a little juice here. I'm squeezing the orange, folks. I'm trying to get him on the Kerry Carpenter bomb train, and he doesn't want to join.
No, I'm sorry. With all due respect, I mean, this is a situation where if you get Kerry Carpenter in the right situation and get him at bats against the right people, he can help you. I mean, the guy does have pop in his bat. I want to say the last time I looked at his slugging percentage, it was right around 500, which on this team is a big, big deal. But also remember, it's a very small sample size. They've played, 15 games, something like that? It's not a large sample size, 14 games. So very small sample. The guy can hit home runs. If you can get him in situations where you give him at-bats against right-handed pitching, especially fastball throwing right-handed pitching, he's got a chance to help you out. So the thing is, and we've all grasped the idea that the Tigers are in a rebuild mode, right? They're rebuilding.
Yes?
Okay. Then you look at the guys that you're building around. Okay. Are you laying the foundation right now? Or are we figuring out pieces that could be complementary? Because Javy Baez is foundational. Kerry Carpenter is complementary.
Foundational or complimentary? We'll have another week to kind of figure that out. John Wagner, as always, my friend, thank you so much for your time today, partner. We greatly appreciate it. To our listeners, find him on Twitter at John Wagner Media. Johan, my friend, have a great week, partner.
Anthony, I hope you and your listeners find warmth and a wonderful week.